Ontario Facts. Let's read the Ontario Fact Sheet for a breakdown of key figures related to Ontario's population, economy, and more. We're going to look at this document, available from the URL on your screen. This is directly from the Government of Ontario website, and we can learn a lot about Ontario by looking at the population, labor market, economy, and trade. This document was most recently updated on January 20th, 2025. The Ontario population. Well, there are about 16 million people living in Ontario. 4 out of 10 Canadians live in Ontario. 2 out of 3 people living in Ontario were born in Canada. There are about 7.3 million people living in the Greater Toronto Area. That's almost half of Ontario's population. If you asked 20 random people from Ontario where they lived, about 9 of them would say that they lived somewhere in the GTA. The labor market in Ontario. There are about 8.3 million workers in Ontario, just over half the total population, but that's going to exclude babies, students, retired people, injured people, and so on. 2 out of 3 people between the ages of 18 and 65 are employed. This is a low unemployment rate that permits job change. Ontario's economy. Ontario's GDP is over $1 trillion annually. Ontario is responsible for 38% of Canada's total production. Ontario household income is completely average for Canada, almost exactly the same as the national average. The distribution of Ontario's GDP. Goods and manufacturing are nearly a quarter of Ontario's economy. So, Ontario is primarily a services economy. 77 out of every $100 in the Ontario economy flowed through services. About 11% of Ontario's economy involves manufacturing. We can examine Ontario's GDP by industry. We're going to look at this plot from Statista, and the data comes from Statistics Canada. The 15 largest industries in Ontario account for about 95% of its GDP. Real estate services is the largest industry in Ontario, and manufacturing is second at about 11% again. The top 5 industries in Ontario represent half of the economy. That is real estate, manufacturing, finance and insurance, professional, scientific, and technical services, and construction. The next 10 industries represent about 45% of Ontario's economy. They are public administration, healthcare, wholesale trade, education, retail trade, transportation and warehousing, information and cultural industries, admin support, waste management services. There's a catch-all other category, and then utilities. The remaining 5 industries may be small, but they have shaped Ontario's image. These are accommodation and food services, namely tourism, restaurants, and so on, agriculture, forestry, fishing and hunting, mining, quarrying, oil and gas extraction, arts, entertainment, and recreation, and finally, management. The total trade in Ontario as of the year 2023. Ontario's trade, import and exports are nearly balanced, but exports were slightly larger than imports on a dollar basis. The top 5 international export and import markets. Among these, the United States is Ontario's largest export market, accounting for over 80% of Ontario's exports. When we look at the items that are exported, Ontario's largest export is motor vehicles and parts. Metal is also a large export from Ontario, as is mechanical equipment. Ontario also imports from the United States, but Ontario does not depend as singularly on one country for imports. Similar to exports, the primary item imported by Ontario is motor vehicles and parts. Mechanical equipment, electrical machinery, metal, and pharmaceuticals are also imported. In summary, Ontario's population is about 16.1 million people. 45% of the Ontario population lives in the Greater Toronto Area. About half of Ontario is eligible to work, and unemployment is rather low. Ontario is primarily a services economy. Real estate service is Ontario's largest industry. Motor vehicles are Ontario's largest export. And Ontario's largest trading partner is the United States. Now you know a little bit more about Ontario.